Hey guys, welcome to Arcane Assist. This week we've got another episode showcasing Khador, as well as some of the new minions changes. Although those will be in the scorn list, not in a minions list, because we haven't quite finished painting the entire minions list yet. And this was the most efficient way we had to do this. So yeah, I guess I'll start with that just because we're there.
Yep.
I'm playing Xekaar because we also decided to feature some ADR casters this time around. So my battle group is 2 Archidons, a Blackhide Wrestler, a Swamp Horror, a Gladiator, and a Kreia. And I have a unit of Bogtrog Swamp Shamblers. Oh, I forgot to mention the Blind Walker. Yeah, that guy is important.
He sure is.
Unit of Bogtrog Swamp Shamblers, and 2 minimum units of Paingiver Beast Handlers. So the list is kind of similar to my old Morgul 3 list that you've seen on the channel before. However, now things are cheaper. The Blind Walker is 2 points cheaper. The Swamp Shamblers are 1 point cheaper, so I can get a couple more things in there. Most importantly is probably the Kreia. Kreia is really helpful for things like the Wrestler, who goes from a 12-19 to a 14-21 against guns, which is pretty impressive.
Really big deal.
Especially with the Swamp Shambler, or Swamp Horror, rather, as well, who is going to go from a 10-15 to a 12-17 impervious flesh against guns.
Much, much better.
So the list is kind of a making use of things like mortality very safely with Xekaar, and pumping your beasts up to 11 with things like POW 20 Archidons that have rage, enrage, and then going in on a target that has something like mortality on it, and just peeling off pieces with pieces that aren't particularly worth much on their own. So that's my list. What have you brought us today, Tim?
So we're continuing to cycle through the archetypes of Khador, what I think the sort of really compelling tournament level playable Khador structures are like. We've already talked about Jaws the Wolf, which is the Jack brick with a lot of fast moving elements, and some of the casters who support that. The week before we talked about Legion of Steel and the casters that support that. The kinds of lists and the kinds of dimensions that list attacks. This week we're playing Winterguard Command. Now, we've showcased Winterguard Command on the channel before in our deep dive series on Vlad. So this week we're doing an ADR caster. I'm playing Sorscha1 in the Winterguard Command. This is kind of her original theme, her sort of home. And in deference to that, I'm playing more Juggernauts than Marauders because I think the Juggernaut is really her ideal Jack of choice. The list I'm bringing has a mix of Field Gun and Mortar Crew, 1-1. Has Joe. I brought Ion and Holt with Valachev attached to get access to both magical weapons and a little bit of a damage buff for the list. Sorscha reduces defense and Iona cranks up damage. I've got 2 min units of rifles, each with 3 rocket attachments, and I've got a min unit of Winterguard infantry with 3 rockets attached. And the battle group is Destroyer, Juggernaut, and Marauder.
Yeah, pretty impressive. Lots of shooting, along with a good front line of jacks. One thing important to note, I think, in this matchup is that one of my theme benefits for Disciples of Agony is Sackpun Minion Warrior model. So, for Paingivers, specifically. Mm-hmm. So, Xekaar has Sackpun, as well as all of my Beast Handlers, to things like the Swamp Shamblers. As well as the Taskmaster can give me tough and no sleeping on the job for that very same unit, which is pretty useful. So I think with all that said and done, we're just about ready to head into the game.
All right, we'll share our deployment and get into it. All right, so based on some of the feedback that we've got from you guys already, we are going to show off deployment. Should be pretty quick at the ×2 speed here. What's your thought here, Evan? You won the die roll and chose to go first.
Yes, so I didn't want to get into a position where Sorscha would move up super aggressively turn 1 with the advanced move on her Warjacks, as well as her being able to wind rush super far forward herself, and then having me kind of caught on the back foot on the bottom top of 2, where she can just get really aggressive, freeze my entire army, kill whatever she needs to, and then score zones really aggressively.
Yeah, going second is definitely not ideal for me, although I'm in a position to be the first person to score. Evan spread his forces out a little bit. I picked the side that I did because I felt like that forest in the middle of the board is a real challenge for me, and there's a lot of obstructions on this table that make it pretty easy to protect pieces. So what I picked is the side where I felt like once the line of engagement was drawn, I could have a little bit better of a shooting gallery. So I'm looking for kind of those vectors where I can really have open areas to take shots to. So I'm hoping to primarily focus on shooting on the right side of the board and kind of take the game to the right side of that forest that's screen bottom, rather than play screen top where there's the two forests and the obstruction that makes it actually really awkward to deal with that zone.
See, and my plan is basically stay pretty centrally so that everyone's still in Xekaar's control range. He doesn't have to cast any upkeep spells on turn 1, so he can rush a couple things, and then they can run super aggressively and basically get as far forward as possible so that the second turn I can force Sorscha into some pretty awkward predicaments that make her feat ineffectively.
Yeah, the line of sight blocking terrain is a challenge for her. And I think one of the things to think about with ADR casters, especially with regard to the Champions format, is what kind of lists those casters are going to bring and what kind of tools you have to address that, which is why I think Evan's choice of a Kreia in this list is actually really, really relevant to a kind of a format-specific choice.
Yeah, the Kreia is super good it's good in most Scorn lists anyway, but with the addition of minions, war beasts that have higher defense kind of in general, as well as just some other things you're not often going to see, it really helps.
And, I mean, the Wrestler Animus of Rage on a Kreia is not a terrible, late game piece.
No, it's not. Especially if I had brought a Drake, that with flank.
Yeah.
There's a lot of combinations.
I noticed you don't have Chiron in this list. Is he just a little bit too expensive to make the kind of budget beast cut?
Yeah, I think if I'm taking Chiron, I have to cut one of the list is basically the Blackhide Wrestler and the Gladiator are Animus bots until the late game, and then they're heavies that kill stuff. And in the early game, the two Archidons play the role of peace traders, so they'll go in, kill a thing that's worth way more than them for the 10 points that they are, because they take buffs really well, especially Rage.
Sure.
And Chiron would force me to play. I could consider maybe dropping the Swamp Horror and 3 points somewhere else for him, because the Swamp Horrors here is kind of just a weird kind of pseudo threat range extender, as well as a piece that's going to be hard to remove with small arms fire due to impervious flesh.
He has actually the same threat range with Rush as the Archidons, right?
Yes.
That's pretty cool because he offers a different defensive vector. He's harder to kill for things that don't care about defense, like Sorscha on the feed turn.
Exactly.
So you cast Rush a couple of times and basically ran everything up here. Is that a fair assessment of the first turn?
Rush both minions heavies and the swamp. All three minions heavies. Just ran the Archidons normally, so everything got up super aggressively. Kept Beast Handlers in sack pawn range of Swamp Shamblers, and held the Gladiator back pretty conservatively.
I consider a couple of possibilities here, including landing a freezing grip on this Archidon and just trying to blow it up with guns. That puts Sorscha in a very, very vulnerable situation. I feel like the yin and the yang of playing Sorscha well is being exactly as aggressive as you possibly can with her, but never so aggressive that you end up losing your caster. I feel like often she's the weak point in the list. Even at defense 18 with Windrush, she can just go down. So I think she has to play pretty frontline. I think she wants to get really, really great use out of her incredible offensive spells. But I think this probably isn't the term where I can afford to do that. So in lieu of doing that, I choose to allocate 1 to the Destroyer here. And you'll see that in a second. I'm going to try to take an Archidon off the table. I asked Devin, and he doesn't have the Kreia Animus up this turn. Focused on just getting board position. And I need to hit some pretty important shots here. Means I'm going to need to roll a bunch of 7s, and to do that, I'm hoping that I can kill that the sort of silver gray colored Archidon on the bottom portion of the board. Basically what I've got to kill it with is a Destroyer shot, 3 rockets, which I can put Joe's +2 to hit buff. That's needing 7s. The Destroyer gets a boosted 10 to hit. The other thing I debated trying was wind rushing up and feeding, trying to catch a bunch of Evan's heavies in the feet. But I decided that even if I do that, He can shake and probably still kill Sorscha where she'll be positioned there. So I opt for a different line of play, and I'm focusing on this one as kind of a positioning turn.
That's fair.
As I say, I thought about this plan for a little while because Sorscha always feels like she's got a ton of options.
Yeah, and she has such a powerful feat. You really have to time it well in order to make the most out of it.
Yeah. She just stays out of threat of that Arcadon, casts Wind Rush for a +2 defense, and puts up Fog of War. As I said, she allocated 1 to the Destroyer there, so she's on 0, and I feel pretty safe there. I think at defense 18 with Fog of War for defense 20, I'm not going to die to a spell assassination from Xekaar.
Deadweights are not going to do it, basically.
So the Destroyer hits and does a big chunk of damage to that Arcadon. So
Yeah.
Step 1 of the plan, working as intended. So far, so good. Joe walks up behind the wall, and he tells these guys, you guys should have +2 to hit. Going to Rat 7 with the rockets means I need a 7 to hit. Now, that's 50% of them should work. I'm hoping to get 2 rocket hits. If I get 2 rocket hits, there's a fair chance that Arcadon goes down. Dice -4, brutal damage, 3 dice. Could happen.
Yeah, I wasn't really expecting this much pressure on that Arcadon this turn, but I suppose with things like bombards and rockets being range 14, you can just do that.
Yep.
Especially with the advanced move.
Yeah, first rocket hits and does a big chunk of damage. Good spike there. Second rocket hits with exactly a 7 and blows up the Arcadon.
Yeah, that's dead Sparkledon.
Yep.
Right there.
So that was better than expected. Obviously, that's a bit of a spike. The infantry models in the unit that had those 3 rockets that shot off the Arcadon, they just advanced to be within sack pawn range of Sorscha. There's not an especially large amount of guns, so this is just mostly reflex that I'm doing this for. But they are well positioned because I think they're probably going to have to do some melee work at some point in the mid to late game. And the other unit of rifles just ran up to threaten the zone, but staying out of the Swamp Horrors rush plus charge range. This unit of rifles, should I say, with the 3 rockets, they're running up into the forest. They are basically hoping to clear out whatever Evan puts into contest into this zone, try to do work against those pieces. The forest kind of does a bit of a disservice to me because I'm mostly a gun line. So running these rockets up into the forest means that I can leverage their pretty impressive range for them to aim, and they can draw line of sight basically out of it at most of the board. I run Juggernaut up and put another one behind him. The Marauder, I'm hoping, will be available to score that top zone in the late game. And Ion and Holt move up. She casts Stealth, and Valachev stays way, way back in max command range from them. And we move up the field gun, and that's Khador turn 1. Take a heavy off the board every turn. Keep that up.
Yeah, no, that's totally legit. This turn, I immediately look at the board and think, can I take 2 heavies off of the table? That Arcadon is in range of the back Juggernaut, and the Black Hide is in range of the front Juggernaut. The issue is if I want to get to the back Juggernaut, I have to move the Arcadon first, which means he'd take a free strike from the first Juggernaut, which means...
Crit stationary?
Well, that might happen. That's a possibility. Or just even dice +3 crippling a thing, and that means I don't kill a Juggernaut. So it's not likely. Probably not going to happen. I consider using the Blind Walker to go in on the first Juggernaut. Maybe do some damage to it, cripple a thing, because that makes my chances a lot better. But it also would need the Arcadon to move out of the way in order for that to happen. And if it goes in, it probably needs Rush, which means it's not raged, which means it's not doing a lot of damage to a Juggernaut.
So you're a little bit boxed in here.
A little bit.
I think you're using this forest really, really well to protect your remaining heavies, but I think it also kind of made the lanes a bit more challenging.
Yep.
So I think what you opted just to kill 1 heavy. Is that the plan?
Yeah, the plan changes to Arcadon kills a Juggernaut. I debated actually deadweighting something and taking out... effectively just taking out a Jack for a turn. But I think that every Jack is outside of 2 inches of an infantry model except for the Destroyer. The Destroyer, I don't think it's going to be too useful to just stranglehold, or rather deadweight that. because it can still get some work done on things like Pain Givers with blast damage. So instead I decide I'm going to park the Wrestler right in behind this forest, nice and comfy, basically blocking line of sight from everything else. If he ever wants to get anywhere, he can be rushed to get there and then smash whatever he needs to.
Yeah, he's super obnoxiously positioned there.
And he puts Rage on the Archidon before he moves, so that Archidon is hitting pretty hard right now. It's currently at an 18. I also moved the Blind Walker up, put up Rites of Power, and then I'm arcing a Mortality at the Juggernaut. Now I boost a hit here because Fog of War is up, so it is Def 12, and I'm not super confident about those 6s.
Rolling hard 6s on 3-cost spells. Yeah, I think that's a boost.
Yeah. And I Maltreat the Blind Walker, as well as it takes damage from Rites of Power. I think it takes 5 damage total, but there is Mortality up on that Juggernaut now. So we're looking at dice even currently. Not bad. But we haven't done the thing that normally happens in Scorn yet, which is Enrage, and that's going to happen as well. So we're going to get a total of +2 with an Arcanon on top of a Juggernaut.
Yeah, that's terrifying. You're trading up against a Khador Jack because I'm a 12-point Jack and you're a 10-point Arcadon.
Yep.
That doesn't happen very often, folks.
Not really. And so Beast Handlers move up. 2 of them medicate the... Oh. Is the Blind Walker undead?
Pretty sure it is. Oh, does Medicate have a living clause?
Hold on. Medicate does have a It's not undead. Okay, we didn't break the rules. Woo!
Blindwalker is undead in...
Maelok's battle group.
Maelok's battle group.
Okay, so we didn't break the rules there. I medicated it a bunch, and then an Archidon went in, and everything was fine. This Archidon basically goes in and uses all of its fury to annihilate a Juggernaut. It worked out all right.
Sure did. Yep, just rips that Juggernaut right off the table. Did not have enough to sprint, so that's nice. Also didn't crit pitch with that last attack into the other Juggernaut.
Yeah, I was hoping for a crit pitch near the end.
Oh, that would have been miserable.
But I didn't quite get it. Kreia moves up into a super obnoxious position to force Aura on top of both the Blind Walker and the Blackhide, as well as a couple Beast Handlers, and then the rest of the army is basically going to move up into that bubble. Swamp Shamblers carefully positioning so that each Pain Giver model has a sack upon target, especially my caster, who you may or may not see hiding behind that mausoleum.
Wacky waving inflatable flailing tube man.
Yep. And then the gladiator just runs up. Here he's posturing pretty well. He can throw it, rush onto whatever needs it. He's in Force Aura, and he's just a beefcake heavy. Swamp Horror, who I see has basically nothing else to do, runs up, toes into the zone as well as in the rubble. He's here now.
Well, he toes into the zone and is completely in the rubble, but yeah.
That one. Not the thing I said.
Yeah, you can contest or score a zone if you're towing into it, but you need to be completely in the rubble, which we checked, and he is. And
this unit of Beast Handlers I give tough. They kind of just shuffle around. One of them goes next to the Swamp Horror in case he needs it. The other 2 hide behind a mausoleum, and the one just keeps everything in command. And then the Taskmaster says the minion unit is tough. So that's a thing. And that's my turn. What's the plan, Tim?
Well, I think the plan is I have to kill multiple heavies this turn, and that's considerably more challenging because of the Kreia. Obviously, I have to kill the Archidon directly in front of me, and I've got a lot of tools to do that. And I consider where Sorscha can go because I feel like I probably have to defeat this turn to lock down a couple of pieces and really do some damage. My hope is that if Sorscha can feat on the Archidon, so the Juggernaut and the remaining shots on this side of the board can kill it, that she can also clip a couple of your other heavies, maybe stationary some pieces, and put you in such a position that the number of tools remaining to you are not sufficient to kill Sorscha. That's the goal. So I'm looking at if I can take Rush off the table, that makes my life a lot easier. But basically, if I go where I want to go, which is move up, feat, stationary, the Swamp Horror, the Gladiator, and the Archidon, and then Wind Rush to a spot in this far zone here, can I be safe enough? Like, will I be able to take out the pieces that I need to take out? I debate going to that spot first and feeding, but I feel like it's really, really important that I catch the Arcadon in the feed range, which I don't believe I will. Do not believe I would do from that second spot. The Juggernaut is just out of 5 inches of the Arcadon, so he won't be able to walk in and make 3 attacks, so he's going to need to charge to get there. So we're jumping into it. Sorscha moves up, she feats, catches the Arcadon, catches the Gladiator, catches the Swamp Shambler, or Swamp Horror, should I say. She casts Wind Rush for 2, and she Wind Rushes over into the zone. Out of range of the Wrestler unless it gets Rush. She shoots the Swamp Horror, hits it, and she boosts damage. She does 7 points damage.
There's a good amount to it.
Yeah, so that's a good start. So again, my goal this turn is going to be kill the Arcadon, kill the Gladiator, and kill the Swamp Horror. So, Juggernaut charges in, automatically hits, Ice Axe, dice +3, rolls a little below average, but whatever.
Yeah.
Second attack, dice -1. Perfectly average roll there.
Arcadon's still alive, though, which after 2 hits from Juggernaut is not typically the case.
We're going to activate some of the rockets next. The Winter Guard infantry with the rockets. The Winter Guard infantry are going to move up so that they can all take shots on the Arcadon because they're pop 12 on their blunderbusses, even though they're only range 8. And then the rockets here are going to take shots on the Gladiator. So we'll do the ones on the Arcadon first. First couple don't do any damage. And then we get a little bit of damage in on the third one. Fourth one hits, only barely. Does no damage. Fifth one hits, kills him.
Exactly.
I had one more shot there, but that's okay. I take a Gladiator shot with a rocket. This is POW 12 against, I didn't quite realize Arm 21. I mean, I could, of course, have done the math there. But Arm 21's a little bit better than I've given credit for, so this might be ambitious trying to kill this Gladiator. I do put a couple of points into it, but the rockets roll pretty low, actually. So Destroyer, doing Destroyer things. See if he can hit the Gladiator. He does, and he'll boost damage. He rolls well. Great roll there. Does a nice 7 points. Unfortunately, it's to, I think, the 4? So I'm not hitting that spirit column I'm really hoping to hit yet. If I can take out his spirit, I can at least prevent him from casting Rush, which I think really limits the options available to Xekaar. Because if the Blind Walker wants to get involved in the attempt to assassinate Sorscha, he'll at least have to put Rush on the Blind Walker first. So I move over here, and I'm like, what if I can just kill the Blind Walker? Field gun shoots it, knocks it down, does no damage because it's Arm 22.
Yep. Force Aura on a Blind Walker is super legit.
So Iona and Holt are like, well, we can account for 2 points of that. So Iona moves up. Holt moves up into his range. Iona moves up. She goes to just within 10 inches. She doesn't need to be any closer than that. She just wants to get kissed out on him. And Valachev moves up a little bit to have them both in command. Iona hits. He is kissed. Effectively down to armor 20. Holt shoots a couple of dice off 6 shots. Dice off 8 shots.
Dice off 8.
Does 1 damage on the first shot, nothing on the second one. Valachev casts Zephyr, moves those folks back a little bit. Keeps them in relative safety. And because they're a friendly faction, that +2 damage applies to all of my Winter Guard here. Thanks, Valachev. You're a bro. I move up some of the rifles. Practice maneuvers lets them move through each other. A couple of the rockets aim. One of the rockets just moves into range. And we'll start with rocket shots.
Yep.
Rolls pretty bad on the first one. Second one rolls good, though. That's a 6-5-1, so that's worth a couple of points of damage.
Yeah, for sure.
Really hoping to take out Spirit, so he won't be able to shake Knockdown, but alas.
Oh, blast damage kills 2 beast handlers.
Yeah, eventually. On the third rocket, I think I kill the last beast handler. But you get a couple of corpses on the swamp shamblers from that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to shoot with the rifles, doing like a 6-person CRA. They get a couple more points in the Blind Walker, but don't take out anything critical. I believe Mind is removed.
Yeah. The Blind Walker has a ton of boxes in body, good amount of boxes in spirit, and like nothing in mind.
Marauder runs up to go into that zone. I still have to kill the objective and remove the Blind Walker, but I'm at least posturing to score. We move up with the Mortar, taking a Mortar shot at this guy. Mortar's pretty good POW, so I might be able to do some more damage.
Misses.
Unfortunately, it misses. Yeah, the Mortar's route 1, and you are benefiting from the Kreia Animus. The Vector we're at, I'm ignoring the cover, but I do scatter, clip him, and also clip Xekaar.
Yep.
It's high impact, so POW 10. Does actually 3 points to Xekaar, which he transfers over to the Kreia.
Yeah, I'm kind of happy about that, actually, because it helps me manage my Fury better.
Yeah, that's my bad. And we're going to activate the last unit of rifles. So this is the unit that I was really hoping could do super relevant damage to the Swamp Shambler, prevent it from being an especially scary threat. But I'm realizing now I haven't done enough work to that Gladiator. And if I don't do something to it, it's going to be a really big problem. I'm thinking that Sorscha's defense 18, if I can take out Spirit on the Gladiator and not have to worry about something like Mortality or Xekaar just getting in the mix at all, Sorscha's defense 18 can probably keep me up. So I'm trying to see what I can take out on this Gladiator. If I can remove his Spirit, it helps a lot. That's a ton of damage to totally the wrong column. But he's got 1 box left in Spirit now.
1 box left in Spirit.
And that's 6 more damage to the 1. All right, so at this point, I need to do 1 point of damage, and I can get a 5% CRA in. So this needs to roll a 7 and needs to roll a 3, 4, 5
for damage.
For column.
You roll a 12 to the 1.
12 to the 1. That leaves the Gladiator alive on how many boxes?
Like 5.
5 boxes.
And has his Spirit still.
But he still has Spirit. 1 box left in Spirit.
Last rifle just takes a shot at a Swamp Horror.
Doesn't do anything.
No. Impervious Flesh kind of helps with that.
It does.
All right.
So, yeah, this was a rough turn in some ways. Sorscha's camping 3, but it was tough to see that Spirit survive. I was really hoping to do more damage to the Gladiator, but the Kreia really just does account for an unbelievable amount of ranged mitigation.
Yep. I did not realize that the Swamp Horror still has a Fury on it, so he has to make a Frenzy check. He super fails, and he Frenzies. So he's out of this in terms of the assassination, which is kind of balls, because I was hoping he would be able to go and help against Sorscha. But I missed the Fury, so he failed his Frenzy check. So he's there now.
But you did reave. You had the Kreia Frenzy, who did nothing to the Wrestler. But the Gladiator, the Blind Walker, and the Wrestler are all
fine.
And they shook their respective effects. Knocked down on the Blind Walker and stationary on the
Gladiator.
Which
is fine. I mean, the Gladiator's not getting in here. He's just going to rush the Blind Walker. Blind Walker's going to walk into the forest, become an Arc Node. And then maybe I get a Mortality onto Sorscha. If so, this becomes a lot better because she's, instead of being 18-15, she's going to be a 16-15.
16-13.
13.
Yeah.
Yep. That. Which is a lot more manageable. And then basically the Wrestler is going to go in with Enrage and do some damage, we hope. So we proxy it out just because he won't physically fit there because the Blind Walker has a huge tail, which makes him hard to put in front of other models.
Yep.
So that's where he's going to be once he gets rushed. Rush makes a lot of the minions pieces that wouldn't normally have access to it just insane. This Arc Node can walk 7 inches or trample 10 as opposed to the 2 inches less that it otherwise would have. It'll also have Pathfinder on those, and then afterwards it can do Rites of Power, so it'll still be an Arc Node even though it has to switch animi. It has a ton of boxes, but you can medicate it because, as we established earlier, it is living, so that damage it takes from Rites of Power isn't a huge deal if you have Beast Handlers to manage it. I also enraged the Black-Eyed there, if it were not obvious. So he goes up, does his rights of power.
Yep.
Xekaar is going to activate, tuck in behind this Gladiator and feat. I figured this game, I didn't feat the previous turn because I know as soon as Sorscha feats, it mitigates half of mine, so I wanted to wait until after she had feated in order to utilize my own.
Yep. Pretty strong.
Maltreat a thing, boost to hit Sorscha, roll the 13, only needed a 12 to hit the mortality, so it happens.
Sure does. That's a big deal. 16-13 is a much less effective stat line than I was hoping. I really don't want to face tank that Wrestler, and now he only needs 10s to hit me instead of 12s.
Yep.
Which is kind of a critical tipping point for the math.
Mm-hmm.
Still possible. She has 3 Fury, or pardon me, 3 Focus. It's not ideal, and he's not going to get Rage unless he goes in and casts it, and that's fewer bot or boosted attacks. So he's doing POW strength 19 on the claw, or sorry, on the bite, should I say? Which means dice plus 6.
Not to mention, I have to move these Swamp Shamblers in order to get the Puppet Master onto him. I also move them, just in case this fails, into sack pawn range of Xekaar. Move out, put Puppet Master on the Wrestler. Wrestler's going to go on in. Charges for free because he's base to base with a Beast Handler.
Yep.
Yum, scorn things.
Prod.
And this Wrestler is in. Now I'm going to boost to hit my charge attack. I need a 10.
He is Puppet Mastered.
Nail it.
Doesn't need it. Hits.
Dice plus 6.
Plus 6 on this charge attack. That's pretty rough.
I do 15 damage. Or sorry, 16 damage, which you reduced
16. I reduced to 11.
11.
Sorscha has 6 boxes left.
I just go for it with the claws. Don't bother boosting.
You buy and boost.
Buy and boost the bite.
Find that 10. At this point, we debate it, and you decide to boost. You need a 11 to kill, and you roll it with after the Puppet Master.
I think it's
reroll.
pretty safe with Puppet Master to just go for that 11.
What you're trying to do is push enough damage through that even with the focus reduction, you kill me, which is what an 11 does. And that's the game. That's it.
Yeah. So Xekaar gets a win.
He does. He does indeed. His first win on our channel.
Yeah.
To Khador players out there, obviously it's capable to overexpose Sorscha and lose. The dice math is really complex sometimes on some of those heavy pieces, but the more you play this list, the easier that becomes. And I think playing Sorscha just a little bit more conservatively, I probably could have continued to take about a heavy a turn.
Yeah.
And done very, very well in this game.
If that fails, I don't know what I do. I think you take the top zone, no problem, with the Marauder that's there. He kills the objective, and you shoot out whatever Shamblers I've put into contest. You take the middle zone with that last Juggernaut you have, killing one of my heavies, probably the Blind Walker, and you continue to just take heavies that I can't afford to lose. And I don't have enough attacks to eat through all the chaff that is Winter Guard, Rifle Corps, and Infantry.
Yep.
So you're probably just going to out-attrition me that way. So I have to go for something like this. Because unless you continually place things next to your heavies that I can just deadweight, then I'm not going to have the opportunity to live through stuff like that.
Yeah. Anyway, an interesting match. Let us know what you think. Obviously, we're going to show off the final of the 4 Khador archetypes that I promised. And that'll end our little channel diversion into Khador discussion.
All right. Thanks for watching, guys. Remember to follow us on all the social media, and we will see you next time.